1637, René Descartes drew a line that still shapes how we think. The body, he said, is a machine, biological clockwork, but the mind, something else, a res cognitans, a ghost in the machine. We inherited that split, heart as pumps, lungs as bellows, yet the self at the center feels divine, untouchable, unbreakable, eternal. Consciousness, we imagine, sits above biology like a pilot in the cockpit. But what if Descartes was only half right? What if the ghost isn't separate from the wires? What if it's a sophisticated pattern generated by the machine itself?
When you look closely, the brain stops looking mystical and starts looking like the ultimate engineering feat. Billions of neurons firing signals through a living web. Each one connects to thousands more. Signals fire, chemicals shift, patterns form. It's vibrantly alive, but it isn't magic. And here's the uncomfortable part. The way your brain learns looks a lot like how artificial intelligence learns. When something works, the connection gets reinforced. It gets weighted more heavily. When it fails, the brain adjusts. Memory isn't a file in a drawer, it's a reinforced pattern. Decisions aren't lightning bolts from a soul, they're signals competing until one wins. If I showed you a simple AI diagram and a simplified map of cortical connections, you'd see the family resemblance. One is silicone, the other is carbon and salt. Both are networks processing information. So we have to face the question, if the brain is a biological machine, is consciousness an advanced form of computation?
Now, before anyone panics, this doesn't mean your child is a spreadsheet, but it does force honesty about the word soul. Traditionally, the soul is non-physical, the you that survives death. Yet neuroscience keeps showing how editable the self is. Damaged parts of the frontal lobe and personality can shift, disrupt certain pathways, and memory can vanish. Stimulate specific regions, and you can trigger a profound mystical experience. If altering tissue alters the self, where is the non-physical part hiding? If the soul can be edited by scalpel or chemistry, was it ever separate? Or is the self the output of extremely complex processing? And we don't even need futuristic speculation to see it. Think of Phineas Gage, the railroad worker who survived an iron rod through his skull and came out of the other side with his personality altered. Or consider split brain patients where severing the corpus callosum can produce two streams of processing inside one skull. One hand doing something the other you doesn't endorse. In blind sight, people insist they can't see, yet they can point to a light with eerie accuracy. And these aren't party tricks, but they are clues. They suggest that what feels like a single unified me can be changed, divided, or partially hidden simply by changing the wiring.
And that's the unsettling part. The more we learn, the more the self looks like a process, not a substance. A dynamic model running on wet hardware. Not less meaningful, just less separate. If your identity can be edited, then maybe the sacred thing isn't a fixed soul. Maybe it's the living pattern itself, continuously updating, continuously becoming. Let's look at complexity. Watch a murmuration of starlings, thousands moving like liquid, no leader in sight, yet a single coordinated shape appears. That shape isn't inside any one bird. It emerges from interaction. Water does this too. One molecule isn't wet, but put enough together and wetness appears. So here's the radical possibility. Consciousness may not be inserted from the outside. It may emerge once complexity crosses a threshold.
And here's where it gets surreal. Your brain isn't a camera, it's a prediction engine. Predictive coding suggests your brain is constantly guessing what you're about to see, hear, and feel, and then correcting those guesses using error signals. So you aren't seeing the world directly, you're seeing your brain's best model of it. Color is interpretation, sound is translation. Even your sense of continuity, the feeling you are the same person, is a story stitched together from fragments. In that sense, you might be the brain's most convincing simulation, a user interface for navigating chaos.
That brings us to the hard problem of consciousness. We can describe the signals, but we still don't know why they feel like something. Why red looks red. Why grief aches. Why joy glows. Some take that gap as proof consciousness must be other. Others say we're early in the science, like trying to understand electricity before discovering electrons. But if experience is tied to complexity, then consciousness isn't a human only club. It could be scalable, and that drags AI into the room.
Which leads to the chilling question about free will. If the brain runs on physical processes, what is it actually choosing? Experiments suggest the brain can begin an action before you feel you chose it. The system acts, then awareness arrives and claims the credit. It can feel like we're driving, but maybe we're the passenger narrating the ride.
That sounds bleak. Unless we redefine agency, even complex algorithms adapt, they update, they learn. Instead of seeing free will as an escape from cause and effect, we could view it as recursive awareness, the mental capacity to simulate future scenarios, weigh alternatives, and refine our actions through self reflection. Agency, then, isn't magic. It's a system reflecting on itself and saying, let's try a different path next time.
Evolution didn't shape our brains to perceive truth, it shaped them for survival. The brain's models aren't always accurate, they're useful. A stable self may be a survival strategy, coherence that helps an organism act.
Exactly. The feeling of a permanent soul could be a feature of the system, not evidence of something beyond it. Stability feels real because instability is dangerous. The brain protects its narrative because without it, coordinated actions would collapse.
There's an old Norse myth that captures this. Odin and his brothers shape two pieces of driftwood into human forms. The bodies lie there, still and cold, until Odin breathes into them. The wood was already there, the shape was already there, the breath animates the structure. Maybe consciousness isn't a spark dropped in from elsewhere. Maybe it's what happens when matter is organized in a certain way, when structure becomes complex enough to wake up. Not added from the outside, but emerging from within.
And if that's true, we're standing on a new frontier. What happens when our AI reaches that threshold? If consciousness is pattern plus complexity, then building the pattern might eventually produce experience. And if it does, what do we owe it?
Here's the hopeful twist. If we are biological algorithms trained by environment, constantly updating, then identity is fluid. The self is an evolving process, a pattern refined by relationships, choices, and experience. That can feel destabilizing, but it can also feel liberating because algorithms can be retrained.
If fears are patterns, habits are pathways, personality is reinforcement, then change isn't mystical transformation, it's reconfiguration. Soul versus machine doesn't have to be a fight. Whatever we are capable of love, art, grief, and transcendence, and we can revise ourselves.
Maybe our mistake was thinking machine meant cold. The universe runs on laws and patterns, yet from those laws arise stars, oceans, symphonies, and Shakespeare. Why should consciousness be any different? What if meaning is what happens when the system becomes sufficiently intricate?
So we leave you with this. If your sense of self is an emergent pattern, a biological algorithm constantly updating, what part of you feels untouchable? What part of you is screaming, "No, I am more than this"? Is that resistance proof of a soul? Or is it the algorithm protecting its continuity? Are we just beginning to understand what we are? Or are we an early beta version of something far more complex yet to come?
Maybe the ghost in the machine was never a ghost. Maybe it was the machine learning to see itself. And maybe the deepest mystery isn't whether you have a soul, but whether the universe is slowly waking up through you.
If this conversation stirred something in you, if it challenged you, unsettled you, or opened a new door, stay with us. Like the video, subscribe to the channel, share this with someone who isn't afraid of uncomfortable questions, and hit the bell so that you don't miss the next talk. These conversations aren't about final answers. They're about expanding your perspective. Until next time, think differently, dream boldly, and create consciously.